all over the place. Anyway, we're going to talk about adolescence today. We're going to tackle two chapters all in one lecture. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay. Adolescence, chapters 10 and 11. Markers of adolescence, rites of passage. There's rites of passage all over cultures around the world. Most of them we don't know about. Most of them we ignore because it happens to everybody. Some of them are religious. Separation from the family, of course, happens with the majority culture in the United States. Severe test of strength and endurance, that's in Africa. Marking the body in some way. Some people feel that tattoos, you're not supposed to get a tattoo. I think you have to get permission to have a tattoo before the age of 18. I'm not sure they're supposed to tattoo you legally. Marking the body in some way, some scarification, putting posts and whatnot, acts of magic. It all begins with puberty, the process that leads to sexual maturity and fertility. This is a bar mitzvah. Bar mitzvahs are for males in the Jewish faith. For females, it's called a bar mitzvah, and it's not normally done. It has to happen for males. They have to be bar mitzvahed, but females don't have to be bar mitzvahed in order to be good Jewish individuals. This is a graduation ceremony in Africa. This is a ceremony in Africa as well. This is not a Canalda. This is a Na'ia. It's the Apache morning ceremony. Yeah, anyway, they have fire dancers and whatnot. Interesting. There you go. When you're a teenager, one of the things you have to do is drink a beer through a funnel. This is, she has just been, she's Catholic. And she's just gone through the ceremony to make herself a member of the church. And it's fleeting my mind at the moment. Quinceañera is when a Latina becomes a woman at age 15. These are pictures from this lady's quinceañera. That's her cousin who has a flower for her. He is her chaperone for the night, for the evening. There they are drinking their first alcohol. There's her family behind her at age 15. There she is. Lots of pictures. Got this off the internet. She's probably in her 30s by now. Okay, as far as the Canalda is concerned, don't throw rocks at me. This is, I found this on the internet. So the first day, the individual is combed, she has her hair combed. They put her in special dress. She creates a mold for her Canalda cake. She runs and she grinds corn. She puts a pot of wheat near the outdoor cooking fire after she has created the mold. This is a hogan. The second day, she runs again in the morning. She grinds corn again. She spreads wheat in the sun to dry after digging the pit. She soaks corn husks while working on the batter. And that is the second day. The third day, she runs again. She grinds corn once again. She finishes the pit and she builds a fire. She makes mush, and this is the blue cornmeal mush that they're talking about. She puts the batter in the pit. She blesses the cake. She covers the pit. She gathers soapweed root and white clay for the next morning, while singing takes place. Fourth day, when it dawns, she runs to the east while four songs are being sung. One 12-word song, unless the ceremony is the first Canalda, when this song is omitted. She makes an offering to Mother Earth. She prepares white clay basket. During the racing songs, she lifts a child. After the molding, the girl goes back into the hogan after returning goods, and they retie her hair as a woman. And there you go. So, I guess people don't really take pictures of this. I found the Na'ia ceremony of the Apache online. It was kind of interesting with all the interesting dancers. And we were stationed at Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma City, and the fire dancers used to come up to Oklahoma City from time to time and put on demonstrations of jumping through the fire. Always interesting. Opportunities and risks of adolescence, opportunities for growth. They grow physically, of course. Cognitively and socially, they become more competent. They seek autonomy. They try to establish self-esteem, and they look for intimacy. Risks of adolescence, of course, difficult handling so many changes at once. May need to help in overcoming dangers along the way. The current risks, of course, heavy drinking, drug abuse, sexual activity, and gang activity. And that's what these guys are doing. They're in a gang. How puberty begins: a sharp increase in the production of sex hormones leads to a rapid growth in height and weight, changes in body proportions and form, attainment of sexual maturity. Estradiol production is 8 times higher in females than it is in males. The androgens, testosterone especially, is 20 times higher in males than in females. And that's why females are females and males are males. This starts early, during gestation, while the fetus is growing. The male especially will be bathed in testosterone, and that will create not only a male physique but also a male brain, which is different than a female brain. And of course, the female has a higher production level of estradiol because of the hormones that are in the that are being produced. Whether it's estradiol or whether it's testosterone, a higher estradiol level will create an individual that has female genitalia, and the testosterone, of course, will create a male individual with male genitalia. There's a 7-year range for the onset of puberty in both boys and girls. The process typically takes about 4 years for both sexes and begins about 2 or 3 years earlier in girls than in boys. And that's one of the reasons why in junior high school you have some young ladies that are much taller than the boys in the class. Just as you see this, these two are in the same class, carrying the same books, actually. But she's much taller than he is. He will catch her, though. Timing sequence, signs of maturity. The average age for boys for puberty is 12, age 12. For some, it starts at 9, can run anywhere from 9 to 16. My grandson was playing in a basketball game at Muscatine and seventh grade basketball team. And on the seventh grade basketball team were two individuals. One was 6'5", and the other was 6'4", and they were pretty good. Um, Potentially, they will be. They have already had their growth spurt, and they won't get very much taller. But for the other kids, let's see, he's 12 years old. Is that right? Yeah, I'll be 13 in July. So at 12 years old, being 6'5", that should be interesting to see where they end up. So for boys, of course, age 12 is when they start puberty. We will probably see that in the coming months as far as my grandson is concerned. For little girls, it can start as early as age 9. Some start with puberty at age 6, but it usually runs from they start puberty anytime between age 6 and 14. 14, of course, will be a freshman in high school. 6th is the first grade. For boys, 9 is third grade, and 16 is the sophomore year. Yeah. Adolescents will see a growth spurt. They will develop pubic hair, and that's one of the ways that you can tell. They have a deeper voice and and their muscles will grow to be adult muscles. They also get an odor about them, and that has to do with the hormones. Primary sexual characteristics. These are mostly your sex organs, ovaries for females, testes for males. Females will be born with fallopian. All of these things you're born with. Your ovaries, fallopian tubes, uterus, and vagina. That is all there when a female is born. For males, they're born with testes, penis, scrotum. Their inner workings, the seminal vesicles, and the prostate gland is all there. Those are your primary sexual characteristics. The genitalia of a male and a female. Primary sexual characteristics. Your secondary sexual characteristics are what make you an adult. Your testicles will grow. You grow pubic hair. Babies very rarely have pubic hair. It actually, there are some instances where they will have pubic hair, but that's very, very rare, and we don't need to talk about it now. Their chest will get larger with the female. Their breasts will grow. For the male, their chest will actually broaden and become the muscles, the pectoral muscles will grow. Growth of armpit hair for both males and females. The muscle mass will increase as far as males are concerned. Also for females. So if they're doing something physical, it's always it's interesting to me. I can always tell if a young lady was a swimmer because her shoulder muscles will be fairly well developed. Not only that, but it tends to broaden their shoulders. So it's rare to see a female swimmer who has narrow shoulders like a model. Models tend to have narrow shoulders, not big, broad shoulders. But if a female was a swimmer in their youth, a lot of times you will see them with broader shoulders, not as broad as a male's shoulders, but broad all the same. The voice will get deeper for both the males and the females. The female, of course, will grow breasts. Her uterus and vagina will enlarge to a minor extent, not a whole lot. Narrowing of this says narrowing of the shoulders, and that actually has to do with I just talked about swimmers. That's one of the reasons why models look the way the models do. They have the narrowing of the shoulders, the widening of the hips so that they can bear a child. It has to widen to the extent that they can a baby can pass through the birth canal. Their voice doesn't actually get, well, it does. When how can I say this? Uh, they don't get a squeaky voice. They've already got us. They're actually their voice doesn't really change, and of course they will grow pubic hair. The male voice gets a lot deeper. That's one of the reasons why males have a Adam's apple. Is it deepens their voice. And there you go. This is when all this takes place. Menarche is first period, first menstrual cycle. And there you go. It's anywhere between age 10 and 16 and a half. Yeah, interesting stuff. And males, of course, they grow their testes and scrotum at sometime between the 10th and 13 and a half. Pubic hair grows between the 12th and 16th year. It's really kind of interesting. I bought my grandson a weight set and a bench because my son used a weight bench, and it really helped him as far as his self-esteem was concerned. And I told him he couldn't start lifting weights until he grew pubic hair, and of course he didn't want to talk about it. He's already started smelling a little bit different. He plays a lot of soccer, so after a soccer game, if he hasn't put on his deodorant, it's fairly obvious. Okay, all the rest of this stuff takes place. The ejaculation is, he will have nocturnal emissions potentially about a year after his penis starts to grow. Probably won't grow facial hair right away. He will get underarm hair. Some people are really hairy. Eastern Europeans tend to be fairly hairy. Italians have some Italians have a lot of body hair. Anyway, my family doesn't. Okay, males can reproduce as soon as their sperm appears. Probably not. Just because they have sperm doesn't mean they're producing it in an adequate amount to impregnate somebody. The human body practices all the necessary functions before the function is actually needed. Babies will move inside the womb. The newborn will exercise its limbs. Pre-adolescent boys will have not been sexualized, who have not been sexualized will experience the same reflexive activity with erections while they sleep, so they'll wake up with an erection. This activity will continue all their lives as a brain checklist to make sure that all the equipment still works. So this is something that with puberty, they start having morning erections or erections right just before they wake up, usually is what happens. And that will continue until they die. It's just the way it works. It's the human body making sure that all the equipment is functional. At about age 13, the male adolescent may have actual ejaculations of semen during his nightly erections. These are known as nocturnal emissions or wet dreams, and it's an involuntary reflexive act. He doesn't have any control over it. The boy's first ejaculation is called spermarchy, which means first sperm. And of course, normally with nocturnal emissions, nobody's looking to find out how many sperm are in there. Anyway, it may be several years before the sperm he produces are actually produced in large enough numbers and in correct form to actually impregnate someone. It's not like at age 9 he can impregnate someone. The sign of maturity for girls is menstruation when the uterus prepares itself for implantation by the fertilized ova. The first menstruation is called menarche and occurs sometime around the 12th or 13th year. However, menarche can occur anywhere from 10 to 17. It really all depends on genetics. There's a lot of factors involved. This is averages. We're talking about averages here, um, as we saw in the list. They can have menarche anywhere from 10 to 16. Actually, their puberty can start as early as age 6. When I was teaching in Mississippi, there was a young lady that said that she started developing breasts at age 6. So in the first grade, second grade, by the time she was in the third grade, she was almost fully developed. Um, Early onset, yeah, probably. So this is really kind of interesting. Menarche is starting earlier and earlier and earlier. I just read an article about it. 6 is not uncommon, as strange as that may seem. While maturation and sexuality have been taboo subjects in many areas of the world for a long time, doctors and other people who are aware of such things have noticed that menarche is happening earlier and earlier than it ever has before, a phenomena known as secular trend. And we're not exactly sure why they refer to it as a secular trend. Doctors and researchers think that we are seeing a secular trend because better health due to better nutrition, lower rates of communicable diseases due to immunizations, greater access to health care. Children raised in a home with a non biological parent have earlier onset of puberty. We have known this ever since the divorce laws were changed back in the 1950s and 1960s. We've seen this happen. Synthetic hormones in the water supply, potentially, stressful family environment will cause the individual to want to leave or to start thinking about leaving, and at that point, they will develop physically. Kikuyu adolescence, the boys show puberty before the females. This is not what happens in the United States, not what happens in Europe. That is not common. In the Chinese adolescents, girls develop pubic hair before their breast buds, which is the opposite of what happens in the Western world. They will grow breast buds before they grow any pubic hair, but in China it is the opposite. African American adolescents, girls develop breast buds and pubic hair earlier than white girls by about an average of 6 months. Hormonal changes, you can see it just crashing through the ceiling for males, the testosterone level, estradiol, and females, of course, at the goes up precipitously. Of course, this makes the males kind of crazy. Testosterone has that effect on people. The female testosterone level will also increase, but it's estradiol that tempers it, and that's one of the reasons why little boys start acting goofy as soon as they go through as soon as they go through puberty. And young females, not so much, because their increase is estradiol, which tempers the testosterone, which is also increasing at the same time. And as you can see, both males and females have testosterone, both males and females have estradiol. Timing of physical changes of puberty, skin oil and sweat. As you can see, males and females, underarm hair. Males get more underarm hair than females. And of course, this has to do with sperm production and first menstruation. The voice changes. The male's voice will change more than the female's voice, and that's one of the reason is because of the Adam's apple grows. If you look at a little 6-year-old boy, a 7-year-old boy, they do not have an Adam's apple. But as soon as they start going through puberty, their Adam's apple will develop, and that is the lengthening of the voice box. That is the voice box, and it's the lengthening of the chords that create your sound. And for that reason, of course, the male voice tends to be deeper than the female voice. However, comma, should I tell you this or not? If you watch a movie, if you're watching a movie and all of a sudden a female's voice gets deeper, it may be because she's sexually excited. Why is that? It's because of the increase of testosterone in her system will make her voice go deeper. As interesting as that is. So if you're a male and somebody comes up to you and some female comes up to you and starts purring in your ear or talking with a deep voice, it it may be because she's sexually enticed. Pubic hair, of course, for both males and females. Early maturation in males leads to more poised, relaxed, good-natured, being more, good-natured, popular with peers, likely to be leaders, less impulsive than late maturers. That's because they don't know if they'll ever mature. These two individuals are the same age, best friends, and one is more than a head taller than the other. My grandson is right around 5 feet, and here he is playing basketball against somebody that is 17 inches taller than he is. Really weird and muscular. They had already developed their uh, their male physique. Late maturation in males leads to feeling more inadequate, self conscious, rejected, and dominated. They're more dependent, aggressive, insecure, or depressed. They're wondering if they will ever grow. This isn't fair. All these other kids are, as far as athletics are concerned, uh, these guys get to win all the races, and they are bigger than everybody else. They just kind of knock everybody around. They have more conflict with their parents and more trouble in school. They have poor social and coping skills, and they think less of themselves. And that is a late maturing male. So it's better to be an early maturing male than a late maturing male. And sadly, I was a late maturing male. Didn't really notice it very much because I had an older brother who I was competing against. So I was used to competing with somebody that was larger. Early maturation in females leads to being less sociable, being less expressive, being less poised, more introverted and shy. They're more vulnerable to psychological distress and remain so at least through the mid teens. They're more negative about menarche than later maturing girls. They're more likely to become sexually active with older boys, mainly because the boys won't leave them alone. I was telling you about the young lady that was almost fully developed in the third grade. The high school boys used to drive past the elementary school. And eventually, what they had to do was they had to not let the girl go out on the playground. For one thing, nobody wanted to play with her because she was already fully developed, and the other thing was that the high school boys just would not leave her alone. It was just ridiculous. Interesting. The rest of it's not as interesting a story, but she eventually she eventually started making a lot of money. She stayed away. She was a very shy person, and then she got angry, I guess, and she started in business. And because she was in business and she made money, she saved all of her money. She bought half the town, is what she did. And then she was my student. That was interesting. Late maturing females tend to be happier than the early maturing peers. So they seem to enjoy the protection of childhood into adolescence. They're more likely to do well and stay in school. They become sexually active later. They are more likely to go to college because that's it. Physical activity improves strength and endurance, helps build healthy bones and muscles. It helps control weight. It reduces anxiety and stress. It increases self-confidence. Adolescents or pre-adolescents who have irregular sleep schedules or chronically sleep deprived and sleepy in the daytime, they show symptoms of depression and do poorly in school. So getting enough sleep is important. Obesity is the most common eating disorder in the United States due to too little physical activity and poor eating habits. By age 15, more than half of the girls in 16 countries are dieting or think that they should be dieting. I drive around all the time. Well, I don't drive around all the time, but when I drive past people's houses, whether they have kids or not, it's really kind of hard to tell because you never see them out in the yard. You never see them outside. They're inside. And I guess I've complained about this before, but you very rarely see. You see playground equipment, swings and slides and whatnot, but you never see anybody outside. Even in the summertime, you never see anybody outside. Really weird. Anorexia nervosa is a distorted body image which leads to eating very little or starving oneself. Symptoms include inability to maintain body weight, fear of weight gain, lack of menstruation. You need at least 10% body fat. A female needs to have at least 10% body fat before she will menstruate. Distorted body image. If she has less than 10% body fat, her body thinks that she is starving to death, and of course, if she got pregnant during a famine time, then she'd probably lose the pregnancy. So the human body is smart enough to know when to ovulate, when not to ovulate. Some researchers have found a connection between anorexic daughters and competitive mothers, and mothers who compete with their daughters as far as beauty is concerned. This is a happy picture because this is what she looked like before, and this is what she looked like after she recovered from anorexia. And as you can see, she looks much better. Bulimia nervosa, these people tend to maintain normal weight and recognize abnormal eating patterns. They eat a lot and then they throw it up. They go on huge eating binges within a short time, usually 2 hours or less, and then they try to undo the high caloric intake by either self-induced vomiting or strict dieting or fasting, engaging in excessively vigorous exercise, or taking laxatives, enemas, or diuretics to purge their body of the excess weight. An example of someone who took laxatives was Audrey Hepburn, was a laxative taker, and she eventually died of colon cancer because she overstimulated her bowels over years, over decades. Eating disorders are more common in cultures that emphasize slimness. Treatment options, hospitalization, medication, psychotherapy. About 1/3 of individuals treated for anorexia will remain ill. They will remain below their average body weight or their projected body weight. 1/2 of individuals treated for bulimia will relapse because they want to lose weight, and they know a really good way to lose weight rapidly. Continuing problems as individuals dealing with these disorders as they age, and that's one of the reasons why eating disorders are a mental illness. Use and abuse of drugs. Substance abuse is the harmful use of alcohol or other drugs, a poorly adaptive behavior pattern lasting more than 1 month. Substance dependence, addiction, maybe psychological or physiological or both. It likely continues into adulthood, smoking, drinking, and taking drugs. While substance use is rare before adolescence, it is common by the end of adolescence. By graduation, rates of marijuana use by seniors is higher than cigarettes. Substance use is highest in Native American and lowest in African American and Asian Americans. While teenage substance use has gone down in comparison to previous generations, it is still much higher than it is comfortable for society. And when the abuse is in your family, it becomes a serious tragedy. And of course, she's smoking pot with black fingernails. It is during adolescence that many teenagers are introduced to their first step on a possible road to adult addiction. The gateway drugs are drugs that in and of themselves are not seriously addictive, but drugs that set a precedent of need that can only be fulfilled with more of the gateway drugs or stronger, more addictive drugs. And usually it starts with cigarettes, taking a puff of a cigarette. Nicotine is the most addictive substance known to man. It kills more people than anything else. And then you take your first drink of alcohol, and now you're one of the cool guys, one of the cool people. So from alcohol, it goes to marijuana. You start, because you're cool, you do cool things, and one of the cool things to do is to smoke pot. Hopefully that's it. You just stop right there. However, there's a reason why they call them gateway drugs. Start out with the first cigarette, then you go to your first beer, then you take your first hit on a doobie, and the next thing you know, by golly, you're shooting up with crack. You're smoking. You're smoking crack. I'm sorry. You're shooting up with crystal meth. Yeah. So that's why they're called gateway drugs, because you get identified as this cool person, so you're the one that, of course, will do something like this, and unfortunately, it doesn't stop. Romantic relationships increase over time. Asian cultures later than other groups. One of the things what do we know? We know that 25% of people in Japan, whether they're male or female, are virgins at age 30, as strange as that may seem. It's very rare in the United States to find a percentage of people who are still virgins at age 30, but in Japan, it's very common. And it's a totally different culture, and we could talk about that culture all day long. I've actually lived in Japan, really strange place, really different from the United States. Not really fair to say it's strange, because as far as they're concerned, that's normal. And here in the United States, of course, we look at them and go, that's not the way things are supposed to be, but it's the way things are, and that they are supposed to be in Japan. Romance is less formal than previous years. Relationships and sexuality are viewed differently due to culture. And of course, it really all depends on what culture you're in. Um, I have talked about arranged marriages, which was very common among the Dene people. Um, it's romance wasn't part of it. What was important was reproducing. So the romantic part wasn't as important as people getting together. And that's kind of the way it is in Japan. It's really kind of interesting. Um, it's a collectivist country. They had arranged marriages for an extended length of time. Did I talk about pheromones? No, I didn't. Okay, that's all right. You don't need to know about pheromones yet. That's another class. Permissive cultures tolerate sexuality. The United States doesn't have the most permissive culture in the world. There are European cultures that are much more permissive. I've lived in both Germany and Japan. Nudity on television is not very common. It's fairly common in both countries, strangely enough, even though you don't really think of, I guess, I don't know. But I've lived there. Actually, in Germany, every Thursday night is nude swimming at the Swimbad. In other words, they have public swimming pool, heated swimming pools in the wintertime. And if you go there on a Thursday night, people may or may not have clothes on. There's a lot of people that swim without clothes. I don't swim, so I never went. But I was in the military, and I had a lot of buddies that told me about what was going on Thursday night at the Svimbad. Um, Semi-restrictive cultures have prohibitions, and that's probably the United States. And it seems to be getting more restrictive. Um, as curious as that is, restrictive cultures have strong prohibitions, and that is some parts of the United States are that way. 47.8% of U.S. high school students have had sexual intercourse. This worries some researchers because adolescents are not emotionally mature enough to handle the aftermath of sexual activity, which is sometimes pregnancy. Only about 2/3 of adolescents protect themselves by using a condom. Teenage pregnancy is always a possibility as far as that's concerned. Worldwide, individuals below the age of 25 account for 45% of all HIV infections. 11% of all births in the world are to teenage mothers, and this is a teenage mother. While individuals between the age of 15 and 24 only represent about 25% of the population, they represent 50% of all sexually transmitted diseases. Something to remember. 1939, a Peruvian girl of 5 years and 7 months gave birth to a 6-pound baby boy. Lina Medina became the youngest human female to give birth. The baby was delivered by cesarean section due to Medina's immature pelvis. Here she is as a pregnant 5-year-old. The boy Gerardo was raised as Lina's brother and died at age 40. And here she is with him later on. Here she is after she gave birth. And here she is playing with her brother/son later on in life. She lived to be 80, 90 years old. He died at age 40 from a bone marrow infection. Didn't have anything to do with the fact his mother was 5 when he was born. But there she is pregnant. At age 5, and everybody asked the question, well, who was the father? They never did find out who the father was. It wasn't her father. They were pretty sure it wasn't her father. Of course, back in 1939, they couldn't do DNA studies. But they arrested the father as if he had molested his daughter, but there wasn't any proof that he had done that. Anyway, Peruvian girl, 1939, had a baby at age 5. She's almost 6. Teenage pregnancy rates in developed countries, as you can see, it's highest in the United States. Seems to be going down. Why in the world, these are more permissive societies. Why do they have fewer teenage pregnancies? Because they talk about pregnancy, and girls are either on birth control or they use condoms. I mean, it's not, it's logical. Is the Netherlands there? Yeah, the Netherlands. The Netherlands is really kind of an interesting place. They've got a law that says that if the family agrees, then a young girl can move in with somebody at age 12. Okay, so why don't they have more teenage pregnancies? I mean, that only would be logical, and the reason is because, of course, they don't they either use birth control or they use condoms. But if it's an 18-year-old guy and he's got a 12-year-old girlfriend, and the family's okay with it, the female's family's okay with it, she can move in with him, as weird as that is. And of course, it goes all the way up to until they're 18, when they're legal, they can make their decision on their own. The APA has recently defined the changing sexual mores in the United States as sexualization, a social phenomenon where people are valued for their sexual appeal and behavior and nothing else. This is especially a current problem with females as we are bombarded by Sports Illustrated swimsuit models and Victoria's Secret angels in their underwear. Actually, they stopped that for a while, but they started again last year. If I don't usually watch this stuff, but I understand that they had the angels came back last year. It isn't hard to see how girls might base their self-worth on identifying as sexual beings, and of course this stuff is all over the internet. So if you want to see it, you can see it. If you don't want to see it, then you don't have to see it. It's on television. Once upon a time, television was controlled by 3 channels, and then it expanded and expanded and expanded. When it was only 3 channels, they could really censor anything that was on television. Now that we have cable, you can't really, well, I guess you can to some extent, but there was, Playboy had a channel, Hustler had a channel. I've never been rich enough to afford those. Piaget's stage of formal operation usually develops around age 11. Individuals develop the capacity for abstract thought, leading to a new, more flexible way to manipulate information. They can use symbols. They can understand metaphor and allegory. They can imagine possibilities and form and test hypotheses. And this is one of the reasons why the adolescent brain is expanding. This is why we have high school and junior high school. At this point, we start teaching a more abstract, our education becomes more abstract. We start talking about what the meaning of stories and metaphors and allegories and whatnot. Formal operations give the individual the ability to perform abstract thought, such as historical time. We understand that. Extraterrestrial space, algebra and calculus, allowing symbols to represent symbols. X plus Y equals Z, or X, what is it? I don't know. I don't teach algebra. What am I talking about? Think in terms of what might be, not just what is. They can think in context of idealism, and this, of course, starts in junior high school. This kind of thinking starts. Piaget's formal operation stage of cognitive development allows the individual to form hypotheses and develop means to test the hypothesis through deductive reasoning. Other developmental psychologists, including the author, have estimated that between 1/3 and 1/2 of the late adolescents and adults do not develop or do not use abstract thought. And the author is not me; it's the author is the author of your book. That's what we're talking about. Clegg Cranach et al. Though adolescents may look like adults, most adolescents, especially males, do not yet have the mature prefrontal lobe. It's not fully developed yet. Studies looking at the activity of the brain found that while adults tended to process emergency information in the prefrontal lobe where the reasonable thought takes place, adolescents process the information through the amygdala where emotional arousal and instinctual thought takes place. And this is one of the reasons why males do, or why males or adolescents do such silly things, impulsive things. This may account for increased impulsive, risky behavior, especially in males, and account for driving, drug use, and sexual activity that really doesn't make a lot of sense. Do you really want to become a father at age 17? And the answer is no, I just want to have sex. Whoops, forgot the condom. Whoops, she's not on birth control. Okay, this is a movie from the 1960s. Now, I'm going to show you this. Maybe, if it's still up. Yeah, okay, this is a movie from the 1960s. So here we go. It's a movie called Wild in the Street. It was a really bad movie.
We're going to make 30, a mandatory retirement age. And we're going to set up rehabilitation camps, mercy centers in every state of the Union. Citizens will report to them after 5 years, at the age of 35. And there, in groovy surroundings, we're going to psych them all out on LSD, babies. That way, they're not going to hurt you, and they're not going to hurt me. And babies, they're not even going to hurt themselves anymore. They won't draft us. We'll draft them. And some of them are really going to dig it. And that's going to be the real mother-loving gas. There's going to be cats who want to split from taxes, diners club, crazy birds, crazy wives, and crazy husbands. Millions, true, but millions are going to go willingly. Just tell them they don't owe nobody nothing. And baby, what a wrap-up.
Suffer unto me, little old lady.
Oh, that's enough. It just keeps going like this. Anyway, there you go. Ideas. This is that was what was happening in the '60s, late '60s. People were thinking, "Oh, wow, if we could just give everybody LSD, that we could control the world." Elkind said the immature aspects of adolescent thought manifests itself in at least six characteristic ways. Idealism and criticalness. They are convinced that they know better than adults how to run the world, and that's what we just saw with Wild in the Streets. Argumentativeness. They often become argumentative as they marshal facts and logic to build a case. We were talking about adolescence here. There we go. Indecisiveness. Adolescents can keep many alternatives in mind at the same time, yet they lack effective strategies for choosing among the best or creating the best idea. Apparent hypocrisy. Teens do not recognize the difference between expressing an ideal and making the sacrifices necessary to live up to it. Self-consciousness. Adolescents often assume that everyone else is thinking about the same thing that they're thinking about, and usually what they're thinking about is themselves. Or we see this on the internet with influencers, with people looking at the same siloed information over and over again. And this is, of course, thinking that everybody cares about what you're thinking. That's known as an imaginary audience. Specialness and invulnerability. Adolescents think that they're special and that their experience is unique and that they are not subject to the rules that govern the rest of the world because the world rotates around them, and this is also known as personal fable. Moral reasoning. Kohlberg came up with this idea back in the early 1960s. Contrary to socialization theory, which attributes moral behavior to early upbringing and internalization of societal standards and cognitive developmental approach, holds that people gradually develop their own moral code as they reach higher and higher levels of thinking. This is what how Kohlberg came up with this. He created the moral dilemma. This is Heinz's moral dilemma. In Europe, a woman was near death from a special kind of cancer. There was one drug that the doctors thought might save her. It was a form of radium that a druggist in the same town had recently discovered, and this would save her from her cancer. The drug was expensive to make, but the druggist was charging 10 times what the drug cost him to make. He paid $200 for the radium and charged $2,000 for a small dose of the drug. The sick woman's husband, Heinz, went to everyone he knew to borrow the money, but he could only get together about $1,000, which is half of what it cost. He told the druggist that his wife was dying and asked him to sell it cheaper or let him pay later, but the druggist said, "No, I discovered the drug and I'm going to make money from it." So Heinz got desperate and broke into the man's store to steal the drug for his wife. Should the husband have done that? That's Heinz's moral dilemma. And this is how people answered the question. Level 1, pre-conventional morality. People act under external controls, obeying rules to avoid punishment or get rewards. And this is usually the way that people think between the ages of 4 and 10. You got to follow the rules. Stage 1, orientation toward punishment and obedience. He can steal the drug because it is really only worth $200. He shouldn't steal, it's a crime. That's stage 1. Stage 2, conforming to the rules because of self-interest. It is all right to steal because he wants to save his wife's life. He shouldn't steal because it's all right to make a profit. Level 2, conventional morality. People are concerned about being good, pleasing others, and maintaining the social order. And this is how people think after age 10. Stage 3, maintaining mutual relations, approval of others, following the golden rule. A good husband should steal the drug. He shouldn't steal. If his wife dies, it won't be his fault. As long as it's not his fault, he's in good shape. Stage 4, developing a social concern and conscience. He should steal it, otherwise his wife's death is his fault. It is always wrong to steal despite the reason. And that's conventional morality, level 2. Level 3 is post-conventional morality. It recognizes conflicts between moral standards and make their own judgments on the basis of principles of right, fairness, and justice. Stage 5, morality of contract, of individual rights, and of democratically accepted law. Taking the drug may not be right, but it is justified. Extreme circumstances do not justify breaking the law. And stage 6, morality of universal ethical principles. Heinz is morally right to steal. He must respect the sanctity of life. Heinz should act in accordance with all lives affected. And of course, that's post-conventional morality, which most people don't have. Instead of viewing morality solely as attaining control over self-gratifying impulses, investigators now look at how children make moral judgments based on their growing understanding of the social world. Neither Kohlberg nor Piaget considered parents important in moral development. Both psychologists grew up in a time where social control was stronger than individual or familial control. Other researchers have discovered that when parents speak to and listen to their children about their morality, children tend to advance through the stages of moral development faster. Piaget actually was born in the 19th century. He died in the 1970s, I think. But he was writing in the 50s and 60s. Kohlberg came up with his morality. Kohlberg actually worked at Harvard and eventually committed suicide. But Kohlberg came up with his theory. of morality in the early 1960s. So he and Piaget, actually Piaget hadn't published in English yet in the 1960s. He was still writing in French. So Piaget and Kohlberg was prior to Piaget, even though Piaget's work came much earlier than Kohlberg, but nobody read it in the United States. Morality may be in the eye of the beholder. Kohlberg may do little but reflect Western morality and assume it is universal. And that's kind of the way it is. Buddhist monks in India actually scored lower on Kohlberg's dilemma than lay people. So, wait a minute. Is Eastern and Western morality different? And the answer is, oh, yeah. Yeah, it's very much different. We, of course, saw this, we have seen this historically over the last 200 years, certainly in India, where the British took over the subcontinent of India in the 1800s, and they suffered. They suffered. They tried to deal with this mass of people, and they just didn't understand them. They tried to force them to think like British people did. And we saw the same thing in Japan during World War II. The Japanese soldiers would do things that, the kamikaze attacks. I'm going to sacrifice myself for my country. I want to sacrifice myself for my country. Banzai attacks, where masses of Japanese soldiers would attack machine guns. Of course, we saw the same thing in World War One, but the idea wasn't that they wanted to die, but the Japanese did. The Japanese. One of the things that most people don't realize that in the Pacific Theater, where we were fighting against the Japanese, we didn't take any prisoners for the first 2 years of the war, and the reason was because they didn't want to live. They would blow themselves up. They would commit suicide rather than being captured, and it was something that we had never seen before. This isn't right. This isn't the Western way of doing things. People surrender, and then you convert them to your way of thinking. But that's not what happened in Japan or with the Japanese. Some feel that Kohlberg's stage 5 and 6 are possible only for individuals following a specific type of philosophical reflection. Right and wrong has different meanings in other cultures. As we have seen, and as people have complained about, as far as the Islamic terrorists are concerned, they'll blow themselves up. They behead people. This isn't right. This isn't the way things are. Modern civilization is supposed to. This isn't the direction it's supposed to take. We have allies who are very evangelical Muslim countries. Saudi Arabia is probably the most fundamental of all the Muslim countries. Yet we attack Iran, we attack Iraq, we attack Syria, we attack other Muslim countries that are more liberal. Well, it's really kind of fascinating if you understand how the politics and the philosophy and the religions work. So when we talk about moral issues, well, that wasn't supposed to happen. If we talk about the death penalty, 66%, 66 people think that it shouldn't be. We shouldn't use the death penalty, and 27% think we should. 66% felt that it was morally acceptable to execute people. I got it backwards, didn't I? Yes, I did. 66% felt that it was morally acceptable, and 27% felt that it was morally unacceptable. Divorce, do you think it's moral to divorce somebody or not? You can make your decision, say yes or no. At this juncture, 65% felt that divorce is morally acceptable. I certainly do because I've been divorced twice. 26% did not think that divorce was morally acceptable. Those were mostly religious people who did not believe in divorce. And if I had never been divorced, maybe I would be one of those 26%. But since I needed to get rid of those mistakes that I made, I'm going, whew. And of course, there were children involved, but I got to keep the children. So maybe if I hadn't gotten to keep my kids, she had taken them from me, maybe I would feel differently. Medical research using stem cells obtained from human embryos. Can we do that? Should we do that? It's illegal now. 64% felt that stem cell research was morally acceptable. 30% felt that stem cell research was morally wrong. It was George W. Bush that vetoed the bill that would have allowed stem cell research from embryos to occur. Gambling, is gambling morally correct or incorrect? And the answer is 63% felt that it was morally wrong. I do not gamble. Sorry. If I'm going to give my money away, I'll give it away to somebody I know. 32% felt that it was morally acceptable to gamble. Suicide, is that moral or immoral to commit suicide? Cloning humans, oh, I don't have, these are other moral issues that I don't have figures on. Cloning humans, is that moral or immoral? There's another question for you. Cloning humans, 11% felt that it was acceptable. 86% felt that it was unacceptable to clone humans. And of course, it is illegal worldwide, universally. It's illegal to clone humans. Polygamy, when one husband has more than one wife at the same time. And this guy's got 2. And all these babies, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's got 9 kids. Is that moral or immoral? 8% felt that polygamy was acceptable. 90% felt that it was unacceptable morally. Married men and women having an affair. This is Petraeus. He was a 4-star general in Afghanistan. And that's the lady he had that she was a reporter. And that's the lady he was having an affair with. 6% felt that affairs were acceptable. 91% felt that they were unacceptable. Medical testing on animals, is that okay if we torture that rat or that mouse or that pigeon? 59% felt that it was acceptable. 37% felt that it was unacceptable. Sex between an unmarried man and an unmarried woman. Premarital sex. What do you think? Moral or immoral? 59% said it was acceptable. 38% said it was unacceptable. As children grow into adolescence, their problem-solving skills continue to improve. Adolescents develop the ability to carefully consider a problem using whatever steps and in whatever order necessary, a process known as task analysis. After determining the process of problem solving, the individual will encode the process. The problem solving process and encoding the information is part of a dialectical reasoning. As children age, their families become less and less important to them, and their peers and friends become more important. Influence shifts from family to friends. In adolescence, this shift becomes more profound as peers begin taking up more and more time. Since masses of people are unwieldy, adolescents will form friendships groups that will become very important to the high school aged individual. Clicks. Adolescents who have similar desires and interests will tend to interact with one another on a frequent basis and form a crowd. And these are examples of crowds: jocks, populars, nerds, grunges, goths, thugs, and brains. And here's a punks scene. I'm not sure what that is. Gamer. There's a gamer. I don't know what that is. An indie. I'm not sure what that is. Hipster. There you go. Normally, crowds are so large with people falling in and out so frequently that it is impossible to know everyone in the group. The small group of intimates that someone knows in a crowd will be known as a clique. There you go. That's Sailor Moon, I think. Japanese clique. High school is no picnic anywhere. These are from Japan. In the top tier of individuals are the jocks, the bad boys, the b-boys, the dumb sluts, the musicians, the players, the bullies, the drunken party people, the semi-dropout bikers, and skaters. In the middle tier is the norm ones, the wannabes, the better-looking nerds, the slackers, the goths, the artists, the mature ones who don't give a cuss about cliques. And then in the bottom, of course, the bottom tier people are the nerds, the ugly ones, the dorks, the targets, the outcasts, the floaters, the libs, if not good at sociability, and the grubbies. Wow, look at all the blonde hair. Japanese do not have blonde hair, I'm sorry. They have dyed their hair. This was a clique. Aggression and bullying. The children who seek dominance and control may be especially sensitive to slights, provocations, or other threats to their status. Instrumental aggressors view force and coercion as effective ways to get what they want. Studies agree that children seeing televised violence and act more aggressively. Erikson, identity versus identity confusion. A teenager's effort to make sense of the self is not a kind of maturational malaise. It is part of a healthy, vital process that builds on the achievements of earlier stages: trust, autonomy, initiative, and industry. It lays the groundwork for coping with the crisis of adult life. Three major issues of identity: the choice of occupation, the values to believe in and live by, a satisfying sexual identity. Cliquishness and intolerance of differences, both hallmarks of the adolescent social scene, are defenses against identity confusion. Individuals need a stable identity before reaching intimacy, and this may explain prolonged cohabitation and less frequent marriages. My son has been engaged for the last 10 years. He's in his 50s. I don't know if he'll ever get married. He's a mathematician, and he says it just doesn't add up, Dad. We'll get married if it starts to make sense. Okay. She's in her early 40s, and he's 50. He's born in 72, so he's 53. Marcia saw the struggle for individuation to establish one's own identity outside one's parents as represented by four types of identity status. Identity achievement is where the crisis leads to commitment. Identity foreclosure is where the individual has commitment but has never been in crisis. Identity moratorium is where the individual is in crisis but has no commitment yet. And identity diffusion is where the individual has no commitment, no crisis. Ethnic factors in identity formation. For some adolescents, ethnicity may be central to their identity formation. Many minority youth feel conflicts between values stressed at home and those dominant in the wider society. Adolescence is a time when sexual orientation becomes obvious to the individual. Historically, people kept their sexual orientation secret, but now they are more likely to come out. Homophobia can make coming out traumatic. Parental rejection can be a concern. However, acceptance by peers may be increasing. Electronic games are especially popular among boys. 94% of middle school students play. 1/3 of the boys play every day. 11% of girls play every day. Favorite games involve violence. It could be related to anxiety and depression. Use may be related to feelings of power, fame, and dealing with stress. The kids may be using the games to achieve a cathartic effect on negative feelings. The great majority of crimes are committed by young people between the ages of 12 and 25. Crime rates peak about 18, then they will begin to decline. This crime trends has been true for over 150 years. So crime rates peak at 18. It is thought that this is true for two reasons: increased peer importance and independence from parents. Two types of delinquency: adolescents, limited delinquents who start getting into trouble as adolescents and stop with adulthood. Life course delinquency is persistent delinquents who start from birth and continue into adulthood and become career criminals. Types of depression: depressed mood, enduring period of sadness, no other related symptoms of depression, major depressive disorder, clinical diagnosis, specific symptoms, depressed mood, appetite disturbance, sleeping disturbance, and fatigue. And there are all the signs of depression. Causes of depressed mood: conflicts, disappointments, poor performance in school. Girls tend to be at a higher risk than boys. Two types of treatment: antidepressant medications and cognitive behavior therapy. This is what people think. You're just sad. But the reality is, and this is about half of it, is feeling like there's nothing. Not having any feelings at all. You are sad. You hate yourself. You have anxiety, you feel hopeless, you feel guilty, and you feel isolated. This is what depression really is. And people, of course, think, oh, that's just sadness. Come on, here, smile for me. But the reality is, that's what depression is right there. Among adolescents and young adults, suicide is the second leading cause of death. And this is not new. Between 6% and 13% of adolescents have reported attempting suicide at least once in their lives, and the ratio of attempted to completed suicides is estimated to be as high as 50 to 1. Suicide attempts are estimated to be 3 to 9 times more common among girls, but boys complete twice as often, in part because they use more lethal methods such as knives and guns. More adolescents seriously consider suicide, 18.8%, and make a suicide plan, 15.7%, than actually take the step to attempt suicide, 8.9%. According to the most recent data on youth risk behaviors by the Center of Disease Control, Native Americans and Alaska Natives maintain the highest prevalence rates for attempted suicides compared to other racial ethnic groups, with African Americans reporting the lowest rates of all age groups. Number 2 are white people. Sexual minority adolescents have rates of suicidal ideation that are twice that of heterosexual teenagers. Non-fatal suicide attempts are also a major concern for adolescents, given that this form of self-injurious behavior occur much more frequently. There are approximately 25 incidents of non-fatal self-harm for every single completed suicide. Those who are depressed or suffer other mental or physical disabilities are at risk for suicide ideation and attempts, but the desire to self-harm may also stem from unresolved family conflicts, social rejection, sexual orientation issues, or an impulsive act occurring at a moment of deep despair or impaired functioning. Whatever the individual reasons, suicide attempts almost always represent cries for help, with the personal turmoil and feelings of intense loneliness, isolation, and hopelessness that depressed or troubled youngsters experience. Resilience, good outcomes in spite of threats to adaptation and development. Protective factors such as high intelligence. These are protective factors that people have. High intelligence, effective parenting, adult mentoring, high self-regulation, ethnic identity, minorities, for minorities, of course, not for white people, and religiosity. So there is resilience out there. It isn't all darkness. And that is the end of the lecture. So I'll talk to you again next week. We'll talk about early adulthood.